Okay, we're back with Larry. Larry, you okay to carry on?
Absoluto.
Okay, so now we get into a couple of more difficult questions, I think, that need probably slightly longer, more expanded answers to. Um,
Okay.
Holt talks about how you got dismissed from service. Um,
Discharged.
yeah, he mentions that.
I was never dismissed from service.
Okay,
That's a lie.
okay. He says that you were probably put on a chain gang, which was originally set up by Mel Ziegler.
Probably
Um,
there was. He
He
says
says it
probably.
was. He says it was set up by Mel Ziegler. He was actually against it himself, and eventually it was dropped from the service. But
Can we
people,
stop at that one so I can address? I can't address because the guy, what he does, his tactic, from what I can see, is just throw a lot of bullshit out, and then it's harder to remember and redress one or two important points. I don't want to miss anything. If you dig what I'm saying, man.
yeah, of course. But he says that Mel Ziegler put this chain gang together for guys who are being dropped from the service for things such as drug use.
Yeah.
And that the chain gang was basically guys who go around sweeping the yard, picking up rocks, that kind of thing. He
Yeah.
says you were on that chain gang because you most likely had used drugs. Do you want to counter that?
Well, I'd love to. First of all, what is there is no, I saw Cool Hand Luke, many years ago, and that's a chain gang, where guys are chained together doing road details. In the Air Force, there was no such thing as a chain gang. I mean, what era is this guy from anyway? Uh, the South, probably. But in the end, no, we had a thing called SNAP, SNAP, where guys were, if you remember, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, they were the black nick cap kind of thing, and it was degrading. And there were guys that would be put on. It was the SNAP program. I forget what that stands for. Any longer serving guy could probably tell you. I was never SNAP. That's a lie. Halt is lying. Never on the SNAP gang. It wasn't even called a gang. It's a detail when you're waiting to out process, maybe for narcotic use, and I'm talking about marijuana or hash back then. I mean, it was the end of the 70s, really, wasn't it? And or disciplinary problems or psychological problems or you'd be in that if it was something derogatory to a degree. Steve LePlume, who's a dear friend, was on the SNAP detail because Steve is very open about the fact that he wanted to get the hell out of there and cut himself with a knife and got chased around by the police, and he tells it better. And they put him on that for unsuitability to the military, but you're not chained with anyone. It's just something for you to do. I was never, are we all right?
Yeah, carry
Oh,
on.
I was never a snap. I kept my beret. I worked in operations. I just wasn't working on the flight line at all. So that's a lie and never happened. And I wasn't ever accused of drugs or anything. Though after a trip to Amsterdam, I did have the narco dog team come through my room, which was not uncommon because some guys would be stupid enough to bring dope back. The drug I used of my choice at that time was called cigarettes. Uh, I still use them. And I didn't smoke till I went in the Air Force. They kind of promoted that. And thanks. And then before that, I wasn't even a pot smoker in the 70s. I wasn't a drug guy. I go to keg parties and party, and we were drug tested, we were inspected and all that. And I wasn't a drug guy. I just never into it. And the marijuana thing and the Cheech and Chong. It was, it just wasn't my bag. And they make it like everyone in the Air Force run around dope. It existed, it was there. Again, hash or marijuana. And but I wasn't party to it, and I didn't do it. So that's a lie. I was never snapped. I was fully a security policeman till the day I flew out of Mildenhall back to Newark. I'm sorry, back to McGuire Air Force Base, and honorably discharged. He's an insulting bastard to say that. You can
Okay.
quote me on that.
Okay.
He's
He comes on to the discharge next.
okay.
He says that yes, you did have an honourable discharge,
Oh,
but it had a specific code on it, which was either 3910 or 3912, which basically means unsuitable or undesirable for the convenience of the government. He went
well, you
on
know,
to say
folks,
he went
you
on to
done?
say that finding evidence of that today would be probably impossible because it's locked away somewhere, and the likes of him, even with his rank, and an ordinary person's not going to find it.
Oh,
Do you want to
can
expand
I
on that?
answer this?
Yeah, far away.
Oh man, I have a fully honorable discharge, indeed. Uh, my military records reproduced at the back of this book to include, and we brought, you see, he's lying again. This is a lie. Again, the man's a liar, and I'm going to call him that. He's a fucking liar. I didn't want to get that heavy with the guy. You know, he's, older guy, but, call a spade a spade. I brought my military record, kids, if you remember me down, saying earlier, down to Halt in D.C., 93. And I have all my reasons for discharge, even beyond the certificate. It says honorable and faithful service, by the way. There's other paper that goes with that. You shouldn't find that it's locked away. Other parts of my military record are classified. That's a fact, which he knows, as probably other guys. But the reason and the code he refers to, you were telling me three numbers, threes?
He mentioned two codes.
Yeah, okay, stop. I got him. I got him. They are not my code, which he could not figure out, and it's not on the records, and it's a classified code, which he concurred verbally with us, which is in the book, him talking about it, is a 4M. And you would think M means medical. It doesn't. It's not a medical code. 4M. No threes, no nothing he just said. He saw it clearly. He's a liar. And my record of service is honorable. This is to my Congressman, Gerald Solomon, who's deceased now. And it talks about when I was disqualified from Air Force service on 17 September 81, many months after I left, which is very unusual. Gordon Williams handled my discharge, by the way, and it said, "Thank you. Please be assured that his disqualification is no reflection on his character of prior service and record of prior service." That's Thomas Allison, Congressional Inquiry Liaison. He's a liar. It's 4M. I have the actual paperwork here. The code does not exist. So the numbers he's throwing out, he's seen them. He's seen the thing. It's bullshit. He's lying. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. This guy's good, man. I'll tell you. But he's not that good. Wow. It's like you think I'd be sitting there going, oh, I got to get a... It's easy. It's so... He's reaching out to people that have no fucking clue of anything. That's his audience.
All right. He also goes on to mention something called PRP, personal liability. And that's why you lost your weapon, and you weren't allowed to access anything further, which was secret or secure.
I thought I never had a weapon. He has said I never was posted to flight. Why would I lose a weapon if I wasn't posted to flight? I wouldn't have been given a weapon. There's a lie and a contradiction again. After the incidents, after things that happened afterwards, and I was snooping around, and I called my mother. I was a liability. They put me in operations where you didn't need to carry a weapon, so I was under the eyes and ears of the command of the 81st Security Police Squadron. And then I went over to supply and back and forth with Fred Smith, George Laws. That was boring as shit. But I was a fully active cop. I dealt with everything. I remember Pendleton crying over some boots one day. And then back over to, he was angry about boots. I mean, whatever floats your boat. And then I went back over to the ops and with Carl Drury. Back and forth, they used me between both. I even did stuff with OSI, Clovis Hungate and all those guys. And I was a full operational cop. I wouldn't have carried a weapon there. They did not want me on the flight line for whatever reason. It wasn't any bad actions on my part. I was under orders. I went where they told me, but I was trying sure as shit to get the hell out of there. So were a lot of other people at that point. I wasn't career-minded anymore. So that's a lie. I mean, I either am issued a weapon because I was on flight, or as he said, I was never on flight. Which is it, man? And I have, hold on, I know it's hard to see on here, and maybe people think John Lennon wrote it for me or something, or, because I'm close to him, in the afterlife. This is a computer, an Air Force old computer deal, I don't know, what are they called? See, I stole a lot of stuff, because I just went like that in my jacket. They never figured it out, and then the rest they locked down. This has my weapons number on it and designation. The whole thing, my posting was D flight, not C flight, like in Hanson's book. They've changed that. And I have all this stuff here, Why is some of it not in the book? A lot of it is. My weapon number, everything. But my weapon was never taken off me. It was, in fact, my M16, the record, they have records all the way through at the armory. And my M16 was first issued at Thompson Air Base in Vietnam. So it had that chain of record all the way through me. And I had a weapon. So he's admitted I had a weapon. But no, I wouldn't have had to have an M16 when I'm working in an office.
Okay, cool. Talking of offices, he goes on to mention General Williams.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was a little bit jealous, but he states that you said that you enjoyed some martinis with the generals, and it was something that he never had the privilege to do. Do you want to expand on your cocktail parties with generals?
Oh, sorry, martinis I do like. I'm sorry. I would have invited Colonel Halt if he had just asked. He's referring, I'm sorry, I don't know, our photo section is shit in Left of Eastgate, folks, and I will give anyone that says that absolute respect, because it is. I don't know, it is dreadful, I'll admit it. But I have photos, here's me, when I was, on the chain gang. That's why he thinks of the military, shitting on veterans like that. That's an honor guard, why I have the white ascot. And what I was doing at the cocktail party was member of an honor guard that came in with officers that actually didn't take place in the officers club. I have many pictures of this, some funny stories too, and you got to watch those officers' wives. We didn't have the word MILF back then, but my God, it would have fit. Very dangerous, predatory ladies. But the cocktails, yeah, I'm guilty. I was an honor guard, and after we did what we did, I think we had to do the parade, and this is after the incidents. I was being asked to do all kinds, like I did his Gordon Williams chain of command. I never had martinis with Gordon Williams. I met Gordon Williams my first day on base when he introduced us to himself to all us new forces, not just security forces. And then I did his change of command ceremony. I saw him during the incidents, and but no, I didn't have cocktails. I did have a few drinks with Malcolm Ziegler and his wife at the Rod and Gun Club just before I was due to leave the Air Force. He wished me well. I think he was part of the cover-up too, and he was always quite nice to me, and he wasn't known for being too nice. And me and a guy named Larry Walls, I'm honest about this. We got shit-faced at the Rod and Gun with Ziegler. He was a big guy, though. I don't know if it was martinis or what the hell I was on to, but a lot of beer and, brandy Alexanders. When you're young, if they serve it, you're going to try it. And then me and Larry passed out on the main road, and Colonel Halt picked us up and drove us back to our dorms. So, you know, again, on that's kind of funny, but he also found me in a refrigerator one night. So I'm not going to, you know, I did like a cocktail. I'll give anyone that. I can't complain. But no, I didn't have cocktails with Gordon Williams. Malcolm Ziegler, I had a few drinks with.
Okay, cool.
I was doing an honor guard. I was not just hanging out with officers. That didn't happen. It's called fraternization. It didn't happen. That event I was asked to do because I was what they called a sharp troop. Right? Even though, you know, things weren't going right for me, I was what was called a sharp troop. That means they could pull me into anything. I'd look the part. I knew the part. And I did the part, and I was proud to do it. I didn't join the military just for the berets, you know. I did it because I needed to, and that was a thing called the hostage thing in Iran, Argo, if you see that movie. That's why I went in. I served. Just things happened that were out of my control. Thank you.
All right. A couple of other things came up now.
I'm sure.
He mentions the names Linda Moulton Howe, Dr. Derek Jacobs, Barry Greenwood, and Ben Jameson. Apparently you admitted to all of them that you had lied and that you ultimately had taken Adrian Bustinza's story. So your story is Adrian's story. Do you want to clarify that?
Lies on 4 counts with 4 names. I can't believe David Jacobs would say any such thing. In fact, I know what David said because David gave him a tape after Bud Hopkins had passed on which Bud would have been infuriated with, that going to him. But Halt is an opportunist on a regression I did with Bud. Linda Moulton Howe made this claim and denied she ever did to me because I confronted her about it in 2010 to Peter Robbins, and I've known Linda for many years. Sat down with Peter Robbins and tried to convince him that they had a tape where I said, oh, I made the whole thing up, it's Adrian's. When in fact, the tape, it represents one of the best early interviews I've ever done. I said, no such thing. See, these are people with agendas and enemies of my enemies and all. And Peter believed it for a bit, and that was a problem with us, which should have been, frankly, on my part, dealt with even then 10 years ago and just put to bed. Enough is enough. But, you know, he jumped right in until he found out he was wrong, and I've never seen any redress on that from him or Linda Howe, even though I did say it. And she goes, oh, I never said that. I've always supported you. This is the type of ilk of people these are. Ben Jameson, I've never said any such thing. I've known Ben since 75. Bullshit, not true. Play me a tape, show me evidence. It's completely untrue. Barry Greenwood, never said that. I dealt with Larry Fawcett. I did not deal with Barry Greenwood at all. That's a lie. I met Barry. I talked to him once or twice on the phone. And you think I'm going to get on there and fucking say, hey, by the way, I made the whole thing up? And just to put it to bed, I was on John Burroughs' show called Phenomena with Linda Howe as the co-host. Don Imus, he ain't. They were on the show, and Adrian was on the show. First time ever he's done an interview on media ever, and probably the last. And completely backed up what I said. And if any, I think you've heard that show.
We sure have, yep.
It's the one they want to go away. So that's lies. David Jacobs never would have said that anyway. But he did make a mistake giving Halt my tape. He's a crafty fucker, that guy. Not David, but David did a wrong thing. Linda, I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw the Eiffel Tower. I never say I've explained that with the tape. Bullshit, not true. Ben Jameson, non-true at all. I don't know if he's even alive anymore. You see, these are people just, he's just throwing names. It's bullshit. Just like he said he was a dear friend of Bud. I knew Bud for 30 fucking years. I've stayed overnight at his house. I know Bud really well. I know his first wife, who was an art critic, the second wife, who I see character assassinates my dead friend. I wonder if Peter knows this in this fucking book. Halt's dear friend, they cut Bud's ghostly balls off in this book. So they're treacherous fucking people. So no, lies. 4 lies on 4 people, and I would say David Jacobs never said that anyway. Linda, I believe, saying it. Jameson, no. And what was the Greenwood? Bullshit. They have a beef with me because I wasn't too kind to them in the book, Left at Eastgate, for every fucking reason. I'm not a monkey. You know, the lights in the skies guys, and they want more fame. They want to burn witnesses and, you know, live off the blood of witnesses, right? That's ufology, baby. Go ahead. No, it's,
Okay, all right.
Stunning how people fucking do this.
Okay,
Forgive my language if there's children.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one. VSA's voice stress analysis. He claims that you clearly failed a voice stress analysis carried out by the former founder of MUFON.
Okay.
Okay. You want to talk about voice stress analysis, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. What he's referring to, without giving any context, as usual, and from what you're reading to me, we did a show in '84 for CNN, and it aired in January, February '85. And I was the only one not blocked out. I was a consultant to that program and sent CNN after all the witnesses on it. MUFON, and that would be Walt Andrus he is referring to, who was the director of MUFON at the time. I think Walt might be dead now. I'm not sure. I hope not. But, and what, which is reproduced in here, it's a letter. Now remember, this is 1985. MUFON's policy on UFOs were still lights in the sky are all right. Anything on the ground is iffy. You talk about aliens, we're going to tar and feather you, or beings, or whatever people want to call this stuff. So, Walt put out a letter saying, I was voice stress analyzed by a member of MUFON, okay? Based on my interview on CNN. Not in person, not on a machine, nothing, on CNN. It gets worse. And I was being deceptive when it came not to being in the incident, but when it came to seeing alien beings. Okay? The middle part. Years later, I was in Sheffield, and I have pictures of me and Walt in the 90s before our book came out. And I said, and I hadn't seen him since all that, which was a kind of a footnote. I'm like, up these. MUFON, I knew what they were about 30 years ago. Walt is also the guy, for a guy that, okay, in '85, he put that letter out, his own letter, stating what I just said. You have to understand, I spoke for him 2 years later, if I'm such a liar, in Washington, D.C., and presented a paper, but it got too into the heavy end that MUFON don't like, and I was asked to leave the stage and had to take the whole audience out of the building. That's 1,000 people, and that's where I met Peter again, right? So why would I be speaking for MUFON if that was the case? And that was their 40th. That was a big deal at American University. Well, away from that, I see Walt. I said, what's the deal with this VSA you did? You said. Well, he goes, what that was really was a member. I couldn't tell you who. It wasn't me. It was a member of MUFON that told us that he could, in his ears, listen and pick up distortions. I go, so there was no machine or actual test. Are there results? Well, no, this was an opinion of a guy that listened to the show. I go, that's not scientific at all. That's not even legal. Even police wouldn't fucking do that. And he goes, oh, I know, he goes, but our policy, it's just the way MUFON were. And the reality is, on VSAs, I have been voice stress analyzed 3 times with modern technology. I passed all 3 on every element. That was done by a man who runs radio in the South in New Orleans called Joe Montaldo. In fact, Blue Boots had that set up. Peter Robbins was VSA too, and he passed, even though there was really no need to VSA a guy co-writing a book who's a non-witness. So I passed that. So I've passed 3 VSAs. The MUFON one was a guy hearing it that doesn't like anything to do with aliens and said, well, that's got to be deception. There was no testing. There's no printout. There's no there's no report at all. It's just Walt Andrus wrote a letter because it went against MUFON's policy. And this is the damage they do to witnesses. And it's been resurrected now by people with agendas and this. And so there you go. Now, let's go to a step further. And here's a challenge. I've said for years, CNN wanted to do lie detector tests, not just me. I will say also on the VSA, based on programs, television, I did it live where you can get a pure voice. Charles Halt has failed VSAs. There's deception throughout everything he says, not just about me, to include some other witnesses. We all need to be polygraphed by independent guys. These TV shows that waste the money recreating things with Pee Wee Herman, and they need to put their money into very heavy polygraph exams on Charles Halt, myself, Peniston Burroughs, whoever else, and let's see who shows up to begin with, right? And let's see who don't, and let's see who passes and who won't. I already know. So, so yeah, I've passed 3, and that's the VSA you're talking about. It isn't a VSA. It was a guy with a political agenda that just made an opinion, and Walt wrote a letter. It wasn't even done by Walt. It was a guy that voiced an opinion to Walt, and Walt wrote a letter.
And the three that you passed, do you want to expand on those?
I was asked, we did it. I think it's about 5 or 6 years ago. Peter Robbins can verify this. He's not talking to me, but I mean, he can verify this. And we passed it, and the guy has the technology to do it. He had no agenda. I had nothing to hide, and if I had lied, he was going to say it, And he came back, and we did pass. And fuck we. I mean, it's more important. I did. I passed. And on 3, and he could expand on it more. I'm not in touch with the guy, but he is known. And but Halt did fail, and these are real. And I think anyone wants to go to Peter Robbins and get more of an expansion on it, are welcome to do so. And I passed, and I knew I would anyway. I passed today, tomorrow, next week. Voice stress this fucking thing. I'll pass it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's talk now a little bit about whistleblowers. Okay.
Yeah.
He attacks you quite strongly for claiming that you were the original whistleblower.
I've never claimed I'm a whistleblower. That's been given to me.
He mentions the name J.D. Angles, previously known as Steve Lumberts, obviously Brenda and Dot. Let's talk whistleblowers. What's your opinion on whistleblowers?
My opinion on a whistleblower is a snitch and rat in the world I'm from. And so I don't like the title. I'm not a self-proclaimed whistleblower. But to a person that is, if you use it in the term that you're meaning it, he just named someone that is a non-witness that had a fake name. But you got to remember, I let my mother know via phone and then wrote a letter, which is the only authentic, original written record of the events to this day from any source. Gary Hazeltine, as you're well aware, has done great work on that. A piece of evidence that I kind of overlooked, sadly, over the years. So that, a whistleblower. As far as me, a real whistleblower in the context, because I do hate the word, I don't say it, I don't like it, I can't whistle, is a person, Brendan and Dot were the original investigators, right? But they're not whistleblowers because they're not coming from the inside out with great risk to themselves. I did, and I was the only one that did in 1982, and I didn't have a pseudonym. It was given to me. I didn't want my name until the document came out in June of '83. Then I was happy to use my real name because there was backup. And so I am, in that context, the whistleblower because I came from the inside out. I got the Halt memo out. I got the audio tape out. I named all the witnesses at that time. And I could verify and prove that I was involved in that, and I still can. So I am the whistleblower. I don't want to be, but that's how it was. And frankly, I was alone in that role for over a decade.
Okay, cool. All right. He goes on to state that when asked by Allison, was Larry there? He didn't say no. He said you may have played a minor part somewhere in the background, not a primary participant, But you shouldn't have been there if you were there, because you weren't fully qualified to be out there. You were putting the organisation at risk by being out there.
Wow.
And the
whole Air Force I put at risk.
The wing commander would have been in serious trouble if that had been the case.
Wow.
So would you like to reply to that?
Well, Allison's an idiot, I'm just going to say. And, she needs to get a hobby or knitting or whatever she does. And I'm sorry. She just, she's getting up there and, not much going on in Scotland from what I saw. And take up knitting. I'm sorry, with the... no, I was fully qualified to be out there. If we reference Eddie Kavanasak from the first night, Eddie and I trained together. We went through all the in-flight. Steve Longero also. We all arrived the same day. We went through the 2 weeks incoming training. We were on our flights. I was as qualified to be there as anyone else. I went out there because I was ordered to do so. I was armed when I went. You don't just do things in the military. I'm wondering if Halt thinks you do. I didn't just make my own rules and just show up. I was as surprised as anyone what was going on. I thought it was an exercise. I've said it for years. Blah, blah, blah. And so that's the most ludicrous nonsense I've ever heard in my life. But I'm sure there's more to come. Go ahead.
Okay, so he jumps about a bit at this point in the interview and goes a little bit back to some of the statements made in the book. You claim there were helicopters overhead. He said he spoke to Charlie Wicker, who was the commander of the helicopters, who said complete rubbish. So, helicopters.
I answer that, or I never said I saw any helicopters at all, and I've never said it at all. I said I heard. And we had CH-53s, they're big on Woodbridge, right in line to where this was happening to us. And I heard definitely helicopters fire up, which would not probably be uncommon. It's a Cold War important NATO base. Even though it's Christmas time, this thing they put out that it just goes quiet. Well, the Cold War doesn't take a break for Christmas, at all. So I heard helicopters. I did never say I seen one. I think Adrian talks about them also, and it was just the sound, so I heard it. He didn't. What's the other part of this?
Okay, next bit. Malcolm Ziegler, was he in the field? He says no.
Well, years back, I said I was told that Ziegler fell in some mud out there. I saw someone that looked like Ziegler, but we had a guy on base who was OSI that looked like a younger version of Mal Ziegler. Now, again, that's something I said over 30 years ago. I wasn't 100% sure. It was nighttime, but I have the picture of the guy who looked like Ziegler an awful lot. Was he out? Ziegler was very involved in this thing, I can tell you, because we were debriefed in his office. So was he not? He was involved in the incident. I think it was the other guy now, so I can be reticent on that. Maybe not accurate on that part. But there was someone that looked very much like him. Could have been brothers, but a little younger, it turns out.
Okay. Let's go on to another point he makes.
See, if I'm wrong about something, I'll say it,
Yeah,
I don't know. A lot of years.
He jumps onto something now, cloudbusters.
Oh.
Something that obviously Peter's talked a lot about.
Yeah, the specialty.
Yeah, he says you should have known, everyone knew, that they were fake decoys to fool the Russian satellites as they passed over. So Peter's a liar on that, you're a liar on that. You knew they were fake decoys. Cloudbusters, real or false?
Well, Your Honor, I plead the fifth. Actually, cloud busting is all the work of Wilhelm Reich. That's Peter's area. I did not particularly want to go there in a book about my experience. However, we encountered other people, which is recounted in Left at Eastgate in their name, that were stationed on the base that saw these devices. Now, is it, and then there was the storm in 87, and, I don't know. But I saw something that looked like them. Now, he's talking about the decoy missiles. They did not exist on Bentwaters during my rotation there. They were brought in 1984, and they were white things, white 50-gallon drums, all mocked up to look like a missile on a missile launcher, right? I saw them when I revisited the base in 1985. They did not exist on our base in my rotation. I would have known what they are. They look nothing like we describe or what alleged cloud busting machines look like, which I have seen. And so he's spinning yarns again.
Okay, all right.
So no, those weren't even there in 1980, what he's referring to. And he should know that.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about a couple of people that he says you asked to lie for you and back your story
Oh, I can't
up.
wait for that one.
The first one is Steve Longero, who he states as a drinking buddy of Larry, was asked to lie. And the
Okay,
second
stop
guy.
right there. Stop
Okay.
on him. Let me do one at a time, please. Yep. Steve Longero was not a drinking buddy of mine at all, but since that he has come public now, he is a ex-retired honorable police officer and a gang specialist, by the way, in California. Steve's come out with a statement. It was clouded by a lot of years. He's not involved. He finds this just an amusing circus. Obviously placed me there. He would not lie to me. We've only talked a few times on Facebook since my service days. I went through basic and tech school with Steve. We ended up on the same base. Steve was a very honorable man then. I never saw Steve drink. I never had a drink with Steve Longero. Definitely on Bentwaters, I can tell you. Maybe at Camp Bullis when we were in ground combat training. So that is character assassination on my friend Steve Longero, which makes sense. That is insulting, disgusting, and I hope Steve hears this. Pure filth, untrue. And if I had asked Steve to lie for me, he wouldn't have. He's a man of honor, and I don't ask anyone to swing my axe, baby. So that's a lie and an insult to my friend and an honorably discharged military. This is how much Halt must love the military, because he's shitting all over it. Shame on you. Next.
He comes to a second Steve. Now, apparently this Steve, Holt says that you emailed him asking him to lie on your behalf, and that is Steve LaPlume.
Steve LaPlume's
talk about Steve LaPlume.
Steve LaPlume and I went through training together. He's from Leominster, Mass. We're good friends to this very day. I'll be joining him on radio on Paulino's show tomorrow if I can get through. I've been asked to. Steve and I talked just a few years ago before he went off on another mission. I won't go into that. That's never happened. There is no email. I don't use email. I've never sent anyone an email. Usually if I have, well, I have in the modern era. No email can be produced. It doesn't exist. It never happened. That is a stone-faced lie. Steve's a good friend. He became very religious at one point. He turned around. He knows the score. Steve went through all this. He knew it's a complete lie. There was no email sent. It's amazing this man can just throw this shit out there. I don't use email. I would never do that. I never have done that. And Steve has never said that. That's a lie.
Okay.
And I'll bring that up with him tomorrow because I know he hasn't said that. And then Steve can deal with Holt.
Okay, let's come on to one more person before we take another song break. Let's just say the name.
You've named two people I respect a great deal, and they respect me. And it's so insulting to my friends. Disgusting. What animals? Go ahead. Okay. Insects.
He talks about this individual and believes that person's story to be a complete lie, of which you're part of.
Who is it?
A young lady by the name of Cookie. Your girlfriend, as he describes her. Would you like to tell us about Cookie?
I would. In fact, funny enough, Georgina Bernay, when she was working on her book, was in touch with this Cookie. And I'm going to hold up a picture here. It's very bad. So Georgina sent me, because she was working on Above Top. I'm sorry. Sorry, Tim. On what's her book called? What was it? I forget the name of it. What was it? Do you know what her name?
You can't tell the people.
Can't tell the people. And sorry, getting old. And and so she sent me, Cookie was in touch, and she sent me in the mail, the snail mail, because I've only been on computer about 5 years. So I'd like to know when I sent Steve the email too. I mean, so, and Steve's been off the radar for about 5 years. So that's me in my uniform, pretending to be in the Air Force or something. And that's Cookie. She was a little honey, I'll tell you. But, and I don't want to insult.
What was Cookie's real name?
Her real name is Belinda Green. Okay. And I've seen her popping up. So can I give you a little background here, the truth of the matter?
Fill us in on Cookie.
Well, that was her nickname. I've heard she called Bambi Eyes too, but maybe that came later in life. I didn't know her as that. I just knew her as Call Me Cookie. And Cookie I met in, as a nice girl. I'm not going to attack her. I've heard her stories on Burroughs' festive radio program, and I was quite surprised. In this book, I talk about Cookie, but I don't name her, and that's when I get to the base. Here's the story about Cookie. I was getting my Foreign Service shots, which I still have the typhoid shot hole in my arm, right? For you non-veterans, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But so we get a series of shots at this clinic. I was in full beret. We were ready to go. I think the bullets for our ground combat, air-based ground defense, and all that kind of thing. We didn't just show up on the base, folks. We were killers when we got there. And I know the lefties and the false flag folk hate veterans or whatever. But anyway, so I met Cookie coming out of the clinic. She was a little girl in basic training. We didn't train with women back then. I don't know if they do now. And she was planting a bush or cleaning garbage from under it. I can picture it clearly. And I got talking to her. I felt bad for her because I knew how shitty basic training was, And I said, "Oh, you'll get through." And I go, "Where are you? You okay?"
Yeah, carry on, please.
Pings. I said, "Where are you from?" She goes, "Oh, Jamestown, New York." So I'm from New York. I said, "Oh, right on, man." And so somehow I knew where I was going then. We did our sheets and I got Bent Waters. I had Alconbury first, got switched to Bent Waters, other story, and for a reason, I'm sure. And she, I don't think, would have known where she was going, but okay, good luck to you. She knew she was going to England. I was the last to get a guaranteed country of choice in the Air Force, in fact, because I just happened to be that guy. I got the last country. They were trying to do anything they could to get you in the military back then. It was only 4 years after Saigon fell. I went in 79. Right? I wasn't in a few weeks. And sure enough, I met Cookie, and I landed on RAF Bentwaters on 1 December 80. And my first day, I saw the thrill of the bowling alley, and that's about all we had going. Bentwaters was considered a hardship assignment, even though it was in Great Britain, believe it or not. It was in the middle of a county of, carrot pickers. I mean, in estate owners. That's all that's there. And Ipswich, where everyone wanted to fight the Yankees and, the shit that went on back then. So very much still a World War II mentality in that area. The Yanks are here to take our women and drive the big cars and all that, which was true. And we did, but but Cookie wasn't, and I had a lot of nice lady friends back then. It was a great time of life. You're out of high school, you're in the, you got free bird, you don't have to be home at a certain time, and all that. So there was that great freedom, and some of us might have been a little too young for it at that point. I might have been, in some looking back. So I on the first week of being on Bentwaters, I started my incoming training on Woodbridge for 2 weeks with all of us, that ended up on C, D, and A flights and B flights for SPS, right? And that teaches you the base, and you re-qualify in the firearms on Woodbridge, because that's where our range was. And then you're posted on flight. And my security clearance, my PRP, came through on 15 December. I have those documents too. No, I didn't have John Lennon write them. They exist. They're on computer data sheets. I stole them. And I do it again. So little Cookie, I met that first week in the club. And I had to find something to do, and that's where we all hooked up at the club going, holy shit, why are we on this base? And I met her, and I said, well, I'm off because I'm in classes. I'm not on shift yet. The next week, which was 6 and 7 December 80, why don't we go down to London? I had been stationed in London. I'm sorry, I went to high school near London as an exchange student in a town called Billericay, Essex. So I had been in England before. And I used to go to London, for fun. And I said, let's go down. There's great nightclubs in Soho. And I've seen people say one club I used to go to, the Blue Boot Girl, the Beetroot didn't exist, but in fact, the Beetroot was very popular at that club, and it was at that time, it was the height of it. See, they're going to say everything I say to imbeciles isn't true because imbeciles don't know and don't check and are too young to even understand anyway. And even good-natured people and good-meaning people don't fucking know. No one checks nothing nowadays. They go, really? Hayseeds. It's sad. Easily to control these people because you're being controlled by internet shills. And basically, well, you're part of the problem, some of you. And so little Cookie and me and another friend and another girl, I forget her name, he was from Long Island, we went on the train down to Ipswich. And she's the girl I mentioned in the book without naming. Cost me a month's pay because we got paid, I think, every 2 weeks or 2 weeks pay. I mean, $100-something bucks every 2 weeks was a lot. I don't know. It seemed a lot more money then. And we stayed at a hotel and we went all around. And I was familiar with London a little bit and went to clubs and etc. And I had a good time, in a lot of ways. And those were good old days. And it was just a nice weekend. It was a lot of fun. And we came back to the base. She, in reality, I've heard she was a spy and all kinds of things. I heard Burroughs' show. I was kind of like, who is this talking? And then I heard it was Cookie, and we all had secret spy names. I was London Bridge. Maybe that's people saying I'm falling down. It's just such bullshit. And James Bond, I've seen the movie also. And in reality, Belinda Green is her real name, Belinda Green. I don't know if she's married now. Was a supply truck driver. She worked nothing with the security forces at all. Only women could be in law enforcement. The women could not work in my AFSC back then, which was 81130. Let the clowns figure out what all that means. And we came back. John Lennon was assassinated the next night. I was in classes on that Monday. That was my last week of incoming training. And then I was posted to flight, I think the middle of the next following week, and then I was on the flights on the 15th. And we have the documents for all of it. I think I went to flight on 11th December. And even though the base was small, we had about 4,000 or 5,000 people between the two of them. And they're like a community. Belinda was in a whole different circle of friends. I mean, cops hung out with cops. I tended to try to hang out with anybody, Dave the pizza chef, I remember him. He was so cool, that guy. And, I knew a lot of people I remember with a lot of real fondness, too. Eric Berman, our PC on the base, that's a British cop. Dear friend of mine, I gave him my cigarette and liquor ration cards when I fucked off. He was grateful. But I wasn't going to be able to use them. You get cigarettes, 50 cents a pack on the goddamn base back then. And the booze, I knew the first female firefighter in the Air Force. The Air Force, man, did a lot of damage to people, too. There was this young gal from Texas, I won't share her name, first female firefighter in the USAF. And she was a stone-cold alcoholic at that time. Beautiful girl. God knows if she's even alive. And I saw a lot of that. It was quite... Your downtime, there wasn't a lot to do, There was all kind of problems. We had the Ku Klux Klan branch on the base. They fought the Soul Brothers from Detroit and inner city Chicago and New York, the whole bit. The Southerners didn't like the Yankees. Everything you'd find in society got squashed together. We had to work together, and it didn't always work out. You know what I mean? So little Belinda, I never really saw her again. Ever, and except hi, how you doing? She had other boyfriends. She dated a lot of people on the base. We were young. Good on her. Men can do it, women can do it. And she was a nice gal. I am with Halt on the fact that I am I don't believe she was involved in the events at all on any night. There's no reason she would have been. And I don't want to attack her in any way, but I don't know why she's saying these things as far as knowing Peniston Burroughs, me, and why would I have a nickname anyway if I was not involved? Why would I be debriefed if I was not involved? Why would I be given injections, like Halt says historically, and manipulated and meddled with if I wasn't involved? You don't take non-involved and make them part of you make the problem bigger. Why do that? He's talking to morons, and the morons, you can't help stupid, So I knew her. That's my only thing. I wasn't a boyfriend of hers. We had a little weekend having a nice time, knocking boots, having a good time. We were young, free, and single, and everyone should try it because you're only young once. I don't understand what she's saying now. I never said. I heard also I sat in her room at the incidents and go, I should be involved, and I was drunk. That's a big thing. I'm always drunk or on drugs. None of that is true at all. And I remember having to go on a dorm clearance thing because we had a curfew in the female barracks at 11 o'clock at night. And I had to go through there with another forces guy and we emptied her room. She was living a party. And we had asked the males to leave. And I saw her then. And I might have said bye, but I never discussed the incidents with Belinda Green at all. Nor would I have. We kept that tight. I was not running around, nor was anybody else. The only guy I said it to was Peniston, and he told me to shut the fuck up. And Jim Peniston has verified that, by the way, obviously. And you know what? We just go back to, I'm doing Paulino's show tomorrow. So Belinda, I wish her well in her life. No, I wasn't her boyfriend. We had a nice little weekend, the first free weekend I had. Never really saw much of her. We were in different circles. Why she says what she does now, I don't know. So Halt, is consistent on that. He's wrong.
Okay, great. That's clear.
But love to cookie. Why you doing what you're doing, I don't know. But I hope it works out for you.
Okay, great. Okay, so before we go into the final part of this reply to Halt,
yeah,
you're going to pick your second Stevie Ray Vaughan song, please.
The second one, Life by the Drop.
Life by the Drop. Here it comes, folks. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you.